Dr. Kaur, you have a quorum.
Thank you so much. So I will actually reference in my president's report and welcome our newest member, Anna Tovar, certainly new to this board, but not new to public service and not new to being engaged in making Arizona a better place to live. So on behalf of the board, we're thrilled that you're here. We're thrilled that we're at full capacity, and I'll actually see the remainder of my time to you to introduce yourself and make some opening comments, if you would.
Well, thank you, President Kaur, and Superintendent Horn and fellow board members in person and virtually, and members of the public. Just an absolute honor to take part and be a member here on this prestigious board. A little background about myself: Arizona native, former educator as well too. I've had different roles in public service, from council member all the way up to right now currently corporation commissioner, but absolutely love the time that I've served Arizona, and looking forward to working with each and every one of you. So thank you so much. On a personal note, last week, my oldest son gave birth to my first grandson. Yeah, so very excited. His name is Mateo, and my heart was stolen the first time I met him. But again, happy to be on. And for members of the public, thank you so much. And please know, as a board member, I will make myself available to learn and to listen, and ultimately work together with my fellow board members for the greater good of Arizona. Thank you. Thank you, President.
Thank you so much. I have broken the microphone. Thank you so much, and congratulations. First grandbaby, that's got to be a game changer. Good for you. That concludes my report. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. I want to start out by adding my congratulations and welcome to our newest member. And I look forward to getting to know you much better as a fellow board member. The Department of Education has been busy since our last meeting. We started something called the Arizona Education Economic Council. Arizona has fabulous companies here, but we have a problem, which is we don't have a sufficiently large skilled workforce. And so this commission is formed for the purpose of solving that problem. We have been able to involve all of Arizona's largest employers. We have Banner Health, which is the largest employer. We have TSMC, which is investing $40 billion in the Arizona economy. We have Lucid Motors and a number of other companies. The idea is going to be to give the students in career technical education, those who are not going on to college, the skills they need to get high paid jobs, that the industry needs them as skilled labor. We're following a model that the Swiss have made very successful, which includes apprenticeships. And the Swiss ambassador is involved. He's going to be coming here from Washington, D.C. for our next meeting. We had the chief consul at our last meeting. We also had the vice president of the Navajo Nation. TSMC is, when a student gets past their apprenticeship, the starting salary is $70,000 for a high school graduate. The same is true for the electrical contractor that's part of our coalition. So we want to prepare the students for these high-paying jobs, even as high school graduates. And this will be a tremendous benefit, obviously, to the students. It'll be a benefit to the companies who are hungry for skilled workers, and it's a benefit to the Arizona economy. So I think this is going to make a major difference for the students and for the economy. And we are determined that we are going to solve the shortage of skilled workers and make life more prosperous, excuse me, for the great companies that we have in our state. The second thing I wanted to mention was school safety. We had granted under school safety over about 350 school resource officers to be in our schools, funded by an appropriation from the legislature. After we granted those, we found that a number of schools couldn't find a police officer available because we have a terrible shortage of police officers, just as we have a shortage of teachers and we have a shortage of skilled workers and nurses and so on. So this appeared to be a really serious problem. We want to be sure the police are there, so that if a maniac invades a school out to kill children, there'll be someone there to defend them. Mike Kirkenbach, who's the head of our school safety section, came up with a very creative solution. He made a contract with a company called OCM, Off-Duty Management, which currently makes contracts for police officers that want to work on their own time for things like privately funded construction that need security, churches, other kinds of companies that need police officers on their off duty, and they're going to do this for police officers who want to serve on their off duty in schools. So a school might have 5 police officers, one for each day of the week, because each one might just have that one day off during the week, which is not as good as having a police officer there all the time, because one of the benefits of police officers is that they teach law-related subjects and they develop relationships with the students so that they have a much better attitude toward police. They don't view them as enemies. They view them as people they can trust. But it's much better than not having anybody at all. And so this is those positions are now filling up, and we're able to supply police to those schools that were afraid they would not be able to get a police officer. And in addition, in our career technical education, we're trying to steer students to public safety, to teaching, to nursing, and so on. So that was a very positive development. And then the last thing I want to talk about was say a few words about structured English immersion and dual language, which a number of our people from the public in our past meetings have spoken about. And I'm doing that now partly because we have some very recent data that I think will be of interest to everyone. When I took office the first time in 2003, we had a initiative that had been passed in the year 2000 that was not enforced by my predecessors, and I enforced it. And so in 2000, some of you may remember Lisa Graham Keegan was one of my predecessors. And she reported to the legislature that 4% of students that were English language learners became proficient in English in 1 year. Could we put up the other slide, please? Yes. After we implemented structured English immersion, our average for 2008 to 2011 was 31%. So 4% under bilingual, 31% under structured English immersion, pretty dramatic difference. Admittedly historical, and I have recent data, but also I think compelling contrast between those two bars. Now if we could put up the other one. The recent data we have is that our research department went over the numbers for those schools that have been doing dual language as compared to those schools that have been doing structured English immersion. And they took the top 5 schools in each category. So the top 5 schools in structured English immersion are the blue charts, and the top 5 schools in dual language are the orange charts. And so you compare the blue chart on the extreme right with the orange chart on the extreme right of it, that section, and you have the comparison with the top school in each category and so on for the 5 schools. And basically the schools that are using structured English immersion have approximately 3 times as many students becoming proficient in English in 1 year as students in dual language. I think that's very compelling data. And the last thing I would say is that at our last meeting, someone mistakenly said that I had proposed punishing teachers in dual language, and I've never said any such thing, nor have I ever thought any such thing. So I wanted to clear that up. So, but I was anxious for everyone to see the new data that we have as soon as it became available. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Horn. We'll move on to Executive Director reports, and super excited to hear from Director Ross.
Dr. Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, very, very excited today. This is the first actual awarding of State Board Student of the Month to 2 fabulous kiddos from across the state. I'm going to have our project director, Shannon Etz, do a quick refresher about the program since it's been a little bit, and then I'll introduce our first student speaker.
President Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, I'm super excited about this. It means I get to read cool stories about students across Arizona, so it's a really fun job for me. We opened the nomination window back in July. It closed September 15th. We received 126 nominations. So we've got lots of awesome kiddos to choose from. Board staff's reviewing those nominations and selecting students to bring to you all each month. So we're super excited with our first 2, and I will turn it back to Director Ross to award those students.
And thank you, Shannon, for your work on this. She's been amazing, and the entire staff has been great. And as you can imagine, it's a lot of fun to read the applications. So our first student is Markayla Shirley. Markayla is a sophomore at Chandler High School, has begun taking college courses already through Chandler Gilbert Community College. And her basketball team, the Res Bombers, made it to the Final Four in the 20th anniversary Native American Basketball International Games. And then she has played on the varsity basketball team since her freshman year and has set numerous season records. And Markayla is here to share with us. Welcome, Markayla. Oh, there you go.
I would like to say good morning and thank you to the Arizona State Board of Education members and everyone here giving me the opportunity to speak this morning. Okay, thank you. Yate she Markayla Shirley Yanashia, Sena Jenny Nashni, my Deshkizni Bashichin, Sidna Habin the Dashache, Todachini Dashanele. Hello, my name is Markayla Shirley, and my Navajo clans are Black Street Forest people, Coyote Pass, Sleep Rock people, and Bitterwater clan. I attend Chandler High, where I am a sophomore. What I love about my school is that I have supporting teachers and counselors who encourage me in everything I want to pursue. My accomplishments so far are taking dual enrollment, taking college courses, and being a Hoopa learning at Chandler Gilbert Community College. What inspired me was wanting to try something different and stepping out of my comfort zone. I managed to do this with the help of my parents and my sister because they taught me how to be independent and learn on my own. What I learned is making mistakes is a part of the learning process, and being confident plays a big factor. What helped me grow as most as a student is allowing others to help me and give me feedback. The staff has encouraged me to take classes that would successfully direct me toward earning college credit and staying ahead. My future plans are to graduate with my associate's degree before senior year, graduate with my high school diploma, and go to college in-state, seek biology courses to become a pharmacist later in life. The support that gives me a motivation to keep pursuing my goals. With the support, continue not only my family, but of the school and my local community. Thank you.
So we have an award for Markayla, and what we'll do is have Markayla step to the dais, take a photo if board members want to maybe move in close. Okay. We'll do a photo with just Markayla and the board members, and then we'll bring Markayla's family up as well.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Is this mom and dad? Congratulations. Nice job. Congratulations.
Okay, everybody smile. All right.
What a great excuse for being late to school on Monday, right? I'm getting a statewide award.
So up next, we have Sarah Israel. She is a student at Insight Academy of Arizona and has joined their healthcare occupation student organization. In fact, she was president of the chapter in her sophomore year, completed in the association's Arizona State Leadership Conference, won 3 first-place medals at the competition in March. Among those awards, Sarah took home an individual award, winning the top prize in the National Geographic Learning Academic Testing Center Career Development Competition, and then went on to compete nationally in Dallas. So with us is Sarah Israel.
Thank you for that introduction. Good morning, everyone. Before I get it started, I just wanted to thank you all for your service in ensuring academic excellence to all of us. Secondly, I wanted to thank you for the pleasure of having me here. Truly, it's a pleasure. My name is Sarah Israel. I've been a student at Insight Academy of Arizona, a K-12 online powered school since 7th grade. I'm a little biased, but I have to say we have some of the best tools of success. And no, they didn't tell me to say that. In short of 2.5 years, my advisor and lifelong mentor, Dr. Young, along with my CTE teacher and confidant, Mr. J, has guided me to my future. The best tools of success? It wasn't the summer programs or the medical equipment, the internships, the college courses, or the time invested in us. It was comfort, trust, confidence, and tons of laughter. Those are the tools of success they gave me to become a medical assistant at 16, an honor health volunteer, a future pediatric neurologist, the leader of my first passion project, a campaign to support the care of online students and workers with 2 of my brilliant teammates. I passed my medical assisting certification the first try. Less than 2 weeks after my certification, I went on my very first interview and I got the job. Now, every day I get to do what I learned and apply what I've loved. Neither of which was just because I'm a good student or I happen to be a good interviewer. It was because they instilled in me confidence, trust. They instilled in me to be studying hard, listen carefully, and take risks. They've let me down in only one way. I feel it is nearly impossible to find a college professor that will take their place. It wasn't ever easy, but with comfort, trust, confidence, and tons of laughter, along with my parents, they have held me and held my hand through the finish line. I'll be finishing high school in February, 3 years instead of 4. So we've made it towards the end of this chapter. I've been accepted into Grand Canyon University for a bachelor's in biology with a pre-emphasis of pre-health and a minor in communications. And to the board, thank you for supporting our school and believing in our career readiness program, because this team of teachers and counselors aren't just shaping high school graduates. They are creating future doctors, teachers, video game designers, and they're taking us beyond limits. Thank you for your time.
One, two, three.
All right, everybody smile.
One, two, three.
All right, thank you.
Just amazing, both of you. Just amazing. Yeah, get back to school. Going to move us on to our second item, which is a call to the public. This is the time for the public to comment on items not on today's agenda or on the consent portion of the agenda. And I will ask that we limit speakers to 3 minutes. Director Ross, have we received any requests to speak?
Dr. Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. We have one person in person and one virtual. So first will be Sarah Jedlowski, followed by Rodrigo Guerrero.
Fantastic. Thank you. Sarah.
I feel like I always mess up with this thing. Good morning, Superintendent Horn, President, members of the board. My name is Sarah Jedlowski. I'm here today to address the apparent hypocrisy in Superintendent Horn's lawsuit against Arizona's dual language immersion programs, particularly concerning his stance on the AZ ESA voucher program and parental choice. Superintendent Horn claims to support parental choice. He's even expressed his intention to spend over $10 million marketing the ESA program over the next 3 years, further empowering parental choice. However, I wonder why this parental choice does not apply to the parents of English learners who opt to enroll their children in a public school dual language immersion program, especially when, if these parents were to sign up for an ESA voucher, their English learner students could enroll in a Spanish immersion private school. These inconsistencies raise concerns. It seems that Superintendent Horn has a clear bias against the Arizona public schools, which he is meant to serve and protect, as well as the approved research-based models used within these schools. In light of these concerns, I'm requesting that Superintendent Horn withdraw his ongoing lawsuit against 10 Arizona school districts which serve English learners. Thank you all.
President Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Rodrigo Guerrero virtually.
Hi, Superintendent Horn, President Kaur, and members of the board. My name is Rodrigo Guerrero, and I'm here to also express my disapproval of Superintendent Tom Horn's lawsuit against Governor Hobbs, Attorney General Chris Mays, and 10 different Arizona school districts across the state. We don't want our hard-earned taxpayer dollars funding a frivolous legal battle that's only serving a personal political agenda. Superintendent Horn's primary role should be to protect our schools, not to engage in actions that threaten the districts and as a result, threaten our teachers and students, only causing chaos within our school districts. These 10 school districts now must enter a burdensome legal battle on top of attempting to provide the best education possible for their students. This situation is entirely unnecessary, and it's a targeted attack on English learners, especially given that the board has approved 4 research-based models for SEI back in 2020. Superintendent Horn, I urge you to reconsider your position and withdraw this lawsuit. It's in the best interest of our schools, students, and the taxpayers that you serve. I yield back.
Thank you.
Dr. Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, that concludes this call to the public.
Thank you, Executive Director Ross. With that, I'll move us on to item 3, which is the consent agenda. I'll stop and pause here to see if any member would like any item of the consent agenda removed for discussion. All right, hearing none, then do I have a motion to approve items 3A through 3K?
So moved.
Thank you, Member Clark. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vice President Haley. Excuse me. Discussion? Questions, comments? With none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Move us on to item 4, which is once again a call to the public. This is the time for the public to comment on items on today's general session. All speakers will once again be asked to limit their comments to 3 minutes. Director Ross, have we received any comments to speak during this call to the public?
Dr. Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up first, we will have Matthew Schramm, followed by Jessica Makowski, and then Kelly Powell.
Thank you. Matthew, welcome.
President Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. I'm Dr. Matthew Strom. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Strategy in Mesa Public Schools. For several years, I served on the Accountability Advisory Group and the Arizona Technical Advisory Committee, and I am here this morning to speak about A through F cut scores. First, I want to clearly state and reiterate that prior year cut scores in the current circumstances are the most viable solution. In fact, they are the only correct solution given the timeline we continue to function on. In 2023 A through F business rules posted on the AD website, it states the State Board of Education's 5-year accountability plan calls for a return to the growth indicator in fiscal year 24, measuring growth between ACT Aspire and ACT for the 9-12 model. While I'd love to have a technical conversation on the word growth and the effects of different growth modeling techniques like VAMs and HLMs and quantile regressions and how they can affect the indicator, ATAC might be a better place for this mind-numbing dialogue. Today, I just want to simply state this. In FY24, if there's going to be a growth component that makes it back into the 9-12 model, then we know the current school year letter grades are going to have a significant model change. And if there's a significant model change, then it's best to look at impact data. And it is likely that using a standard deviation model to set new cuts might be something needed as a result of this significant model change. But changing cuts in October 24 for a school year that has already passed, has already finished, leaves the field with a practical conclusion that the goalposts have changed after the game has already been played. So we must be stuck with a chicken and an egg problem. Which comes first, the model change or the cut scores? What I'm going to suggest is that there's no model change for SY24 and that impact data with ACT Aspire and ACT growth can be studied in summer of 24 and new cut scores can be established in August of 24 prior to the school year starting. In this matter, the model change is anticipated but not implemented until impact data can drive cut scores, and cut scores can be set at least at the beginning of the school year, not after. As we continue to move forward in accountability, I think the three most important things to consider are first, cut score timelines, model changes, and impact data. Second, dynamic modeling in a non-standardized, personalized learning world, which is where we're headed. Third, capturing a diverse array of educational outputs experienced in educational systems. Cal Baker, as member of this board, drove ATAC forward in developing the College and Career Readiness Index to start Arizona down the pathway of being ahead of personalized learning systems that he knew were eventually going to be molded. With many systems and research pointing towards quantitative reasoning and statistical reasoning being just as valuable as the algebra to calculus pipeline, my hope is that accountability can look to states like Indiana, who are developing several graduation pathways, and ask, what does accountability look like when secondary students are able to build their own diploma, build their own pathway, a unique pathway that may not be standardized with traditional industrial age educational outcomes and outputs that will require unique accountability structures. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Dr. Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Jessica Mikowski, followed by Kelly Powell, and then Dr. Mark Jornstad.
Welcome, Jessica.
Teacher voice and keep this on. So hopefully you guys can all hear me. All right, 3 minutes. Let's go.
Yep.
Superintendent Horn, President Kaur, and members of the board, thanks so much for listening today. First of all, Superintendent Horn, we're getting an SSO through this program. Thank you. So just want to say thanks for my students, for my families. We've been waiting on the SRO grant, and hopefully you have heard that as I have attested to the public and the media. So thank you. All right, for our board, I have a couple of things today. One, keep those cut scores the same. I think I echo that. A changing target is hard. It's like making the test after you've taught the students. So please keeping those cut scores the same today. The second thing that I would just like to plug as we're thinking about letter grades for this year is next year. What do our letter grades tell our community? In my school, we changed our grades to mastery based. And if you walk into Western School of Science and Technology, any student can tell you what their grade means. They know exactly what that score correlates to, what standard it is associated with, and how to learn it better and how to show that. I had my pharmacist ask me the other day how to choose a high school for his daughter, because he has no idea what goes into the making of a good high school. And I asked, what's their letter grade? He said a B, but what does that mean? And the reality is a whole bunch of different things depending on the school. So I would encourage us for next year to really look at slicing that up. What does it mean? Could I have a plus symbol next to my letter grade if I was really good at teaching English language learners, or something different? It doesn't need to be a bucket. We appreciate diversity here in the state. We love our charter schools and our private schools and our district schools. So why are we trying to push us all back into the same narrow pathway when we communicate how good we are to our parents? Okay, but for today's agenda, here's what I have for you. On your appeals process, 10A and 12A, I would like you to reconsider those. 10A says that I cannot do an appeal on the opposition of accountability. So I want to talk to you about Western specifically. So at Western School of Science and Technology, we did drop in our proficiency in ACT this year. It was a couple of students. I personally know those couple of students were sick, but committed to the cause of being the first A-rated high school in Maryville. So they showed up anyways, started a times test, and then ran to the restroom a bunch of times. However, 2 students in a small school like mine drops my proficiency to below what it was last year, which should count in the proficiency model like that. That's fine. However, my subgroups are the same as my whole population. So for those 2 kids, I lost 10 points. I lost the entire subgroup growth this year. Do you know what else? Out of those 11th graders, 50% of them reclassified on their Azella. 50% of my EL scholars got there. This does not seem like a fair grade for the work that my school is actually doing. And now I cannot do an appeal because that's on the grounds of the rules. I did talk to the advisory committee before this happened. The second is 12A, submitting a 915 to do an appeal means my funding could change. I'm not sure why my funding needs to change based on this type of data. That's all I have for you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dr. Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Kelly Powell, followed by Dr. Mark Jornstad.
Welcome, Kelly.
Thank you, Dr. Kaur, members of the board, superintendent. My name is Kelly Powell. I work with the Charter School Association. I do research for them there. And in that capacity, I get to support about more than 500 schools. I'm also on the ATAC and double ATAC committees. And in that capacity, I get to work and support about 2,000 schools, all the public schools in Arizona. And it's real important. I hate following Matt Strom and Jessica Mikowski here, but I'm here really with a simple message, which is to speak for validity. Not unlike a couple of years back, this committee would have the Education LORAC show up in a unitard. Some of you, at least you, Dr. Cord, will remember this. And he would speak for...
As much as I'd like to forget.
I drug out a jacket instead for you all. But my mantra on ATAC is to talk about validity. And with 2 minutes and 27, 26, 25 seconds, it's usually several courses at a college level. I'm not going to go into it that deeply. Just realize it is not a pronouncement. It's not an algorithm. Validity is an interpretation, and it is really more like science itself, just building evidence as you go along. As you see something happen that doesn't quite fit your model, then you change it a little bit. It is the ATAC process, double ATAC process. And this is what these committees exist for, is to build evidence of validity as you go along. And like the last speaker, I am a bit concerned about that 10A part of the appeals process, specifically since the models are set, and it's good to get them done ahead of time, but they are dynamic. They do change, like the subgroup growth component. And when ATAC sets that, we don't always have that much information to scientifically validate this, right? So we provide the advice. That's the A, one of the A's in the ATAC moniker. And we don't have impact data. It happens after the fact. So the concern is the best way to collect the validity evidence, if you're doing right and not doing wrong, is during that appeals process. And by saying a school like Ms. Mikowski's school cannot appeal based upon that component, does disservice, I think, to the models in general. So not that the models are just a guess, but they are an educated guess if we do not have the information to model. So it's worth considering suspending that, softening the language. The language I like comes from one of the 3 Seans that work on ATAC. It's a confusing matter, but it is showing a little grace towards the schools and hearing them out. We've all seen students grade grub, and we know that when we see it, and we just smile and say, no, thank you. The folks who are working on the appeals process are top notch. I trust all of the board staff, ADE staff, and the 3 members of your board to do the right thing, to show some discretion. But there are multiple holes in our models. I'll just say it that way.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Dr. Mark Jornstad, virtually, I believe.
Am I able to be heard?
We can hear you, Mark. Good to see you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, President Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. I am Mark Jornstad, representing the 1,500 Arizona school administrators. The development of an equitable, transparent accountability system is vital to Arizona's future, and the board recognized its indispensability in October of 2014 by issuing principles of agreement in the development of such a system. I'm going to remind you of some of those principles from that occasion. First, multiple measures of performance provide more information about a school's quality than a single test score. The achievement profile must recognize academic growth as an essential element of measurement. Schools must not be penalized for low scores if significant gains are made over the course of the academic year. However, at least 1 year's growth must remain the expectation to ensure students of today stay on pace to graduate prepared. All schools must have the opportunity to achieve an A status. That opportunity is so critical. The achievement profile should reflect both growth of students not at grade level, as well as students who are at or above the grade level. And finally, the system should meaningfully balance simplicity with transparency. So I remind you of those principles done by a previous state board and really maintained over the years as you make your decision today on prior year cut scores. Adhering to these state board principles is best achieved by voting today to continue the use of the prior year cut scores. The goals of transparency and simplicity are enhanced as educators and communities can make year-to-year, apples-to-apples comparisons. Multiple factors are included in the determination of school grades, especially at the high school level. Now, there's room for improvement in that at the K-8 level. Continuing these scores would help parents by providing them the multifaceted information they desire to judge their school quality in all its complexity. And I remind you that complexity is a key word here. Schools and districts are complex social organisms, if you will, that there's so many multiple factors, which previous speakers have reminded you of, that labeling things with a single grade always carry some inherent problems. But I urge you today to minimize those by sticking with the prior year cut scores. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you.
Dr. Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, that concludes this call to the public.
Fantastic. With that, then I'll move us on to item number 5 of our agenda, the general session. This is presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding the accountability cut scores for traditional, hybrid, alternative, and Arizona online instruction schools for the 2022-2023 school year. Director Ross.
Superintendent Horn, Dr. Kaur, members of the board, in September, Sean Smith, who I will call forward from the Arizona Department of Education, had presented to you all on the cut score options for the A-F accountability system for the 22-23 school year. As a reminder, he had discussed prior year cut scores and then a standard deviation model. I'll kind of summarize, but Sean, jump in. The standard deviation model is typically reserved for when there is a significant change to an input into the A-F system, for example, a new assessment of some sort. When that is not present, the prior year cut score has been used historically by the board. In their review, extensive review of the data and models this year, both the ATAC and the double ATAC recommended the use of prior year cut scores. And so instead of having Sean deliver the same presentation, we included in the executive summary what the prior year cut scores would be, and have Sean and I are both here for any questions that you all may have.
Fantastic. Thank you, Director Ross. Sean, please.
I just thank you again to the board for consideration. Sorry, I'll take that off so I'm not mumbling. Thank you to the board for their consideration. It's been a great process with everybody that's been involved. I would agree with the sentiment. The prior year cut scores do provide a large level of transparency, comparability, and communication. And I think that's one of the best things that the accountability system can do is communicate out to parents and community members as they're supporting their schools or looking for schools. And so, yeah, I'm available for any questions.
Any questions? I know we've kicked this around for some time. Yeah, please, Member Kravickas.
Hi, Sean.
Hey.
Thank you for your work on this. I just want to reiterate some things I've said in the past. But I was really impressed with the comments from, I can't remember her name in the back, about the mastery-based system. I've had the pleasure of seeing a lot of personalized competency-based schools across the country, and there is a level of transparency and understandability that doesn't exist on a letter grade system. And we all know this even as parents or former students. So what was a B, right? I know this is a long, tall task for a future discussion, but as we or future boards discuss the new 5-year plan for accountability when we get there, really thinking about how we can develop a more criterion-based system. So it's very clear what the criteria are to be an A, where I think it's really mushy now. And I really appreciate the fact that the last board said every school should have a chance to be an A school. Wholeheartedly agree. But I appreciate your answer to this question last time, but I feel like some of the components right now are still very normative. And so I think it's really hard for schools to know what it means to be an A. So it's kind of a future thing I wanted to throw out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Kravickas. Any other thoughts or questions? Folks with us virtually, we're good. Thank you. All right, with that, then do I have a motion to approve the 2022-2023 accountability cut scores as presented and direct the Department of Education to release the public file with school and LEA letter grades prior to November 1st, 2023. Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Dr. Clay. Do I have a second?
Second.
I think I'm going to have to give that to Member Meyerson by a nose. Any other thoughts, questions, or comments before I call the vote? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor of approving the motion as presented, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Move us on to 5B, which is presentation, discussion, and possible action to adopt the 2022-2023 accountability appeals process and procedures for a school to appeal its final letter grade. Director Ross.
Dr. Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. As a reminder, our research analyst, Jessica Mueller, presented on these policies back in August, soliciting feedback, and is here today to remind you of some of those changes and then to seek a vote from the board. So Jessica.
Fantastic. Jessica, please.
Yes, President Kaur, Superintendent Horn, and members of the board. There are a couple of those changes that were proposed. In the past, there were some challenges with the non-expedited appeals where the questions that were going to be asked by the committee members weren't very clear to the schools that were presenting. So we're going to be soliciting that information from the committee members ahead of time so we can share those questions with the schools so they can come prepared to address those gaps that might have been in the appeal application, as well as anything that we can do to gather more information before we get to the appeals committee from schools. We will do that behind the scenes as well. Besides that other change, there's some different communication strategies that we're using this year. We are putting together exemplar videos as well as just walkthrough and guidance videos. Those presentations and the videos will be on the board's website. They'll clarify some things within the policies and procedures, such as within the incorrect data that in every situation, it won't be required to file 15915. It might not be required to do the data training workshop or any attestation. It all depends on that case by case kind of judgment that the committee members are making within the appeal review process. On top of some of those changes that are happening to our new refreshed board website, we are as well going to be sending just more personalized letters and communications throughout the appeals process to schools. A lot of the times we get sort of a question of, what's the status? What's the next step? What do I need to do? And so we're going to provide that really personalized rather than what we were doing in the past, which was blanket statements to every school. So I think that will help a little bit with some of that support and those questions that are coming in without the process. The contact information for the board staff and the Department of Education are on the policies and procedures. And we always welcome questions and any comments that people are having as those letter grades are released and any appeals are being filed or not. There last year within the number 10, there was the inclusion of self-reported data that we were not going to allow people to submit self-reported data that wasn't provided ahead of time into letter grade. Last year, we gave some grace and still allowed that to continue. This year, the grace that is happening is as long as you've contacted the department before that letter grade is released, which is before that November 1st, and tried to get those steps to get that data into the letter grade beforehand, that will go through the appeals process and then possibly be included in the letter grade. So that's sort of, they've been doing a lot, the Department of Education has been doing a lot of outreach to try to get that information and provide some manual ways for schools to self-report that data later than usual. So as usual, it's that disclaimer of any time before those letter grades are released, try to contact the department about your self-reported data. Within the 5-year accountability plan, there was as well the stipulation for the 22-23 school year to be the first school year for the local education agency letter grades to be released again. I believe the last time might have been school year 2013-14 for those letter grades. So that will be a little bit new. The process for how those are calculated was approved by the board in April 2022, and that would just be a straight GPA. This will, again, go through the accountability technical advisory committees as that information comes out so we can see if it's still working and validating some of it. LEAs will appeal that letter grade by appealing those individual schools in their LEAs, which can be a little bit different for charters, of course, but that will reflect as an under review on the public file, just like the school. So that will be remedied after the December board meeting. And if anybody has any questions about any process for maybe if the LEA letter grade isn't accurate, feel free to contact and reach out to us so we can fix that.
Just to clarify, LEA refers to district, like district letter grades, so the composite letter grade of multiple schools.
Thank you, Sean. So if there's any questions that anybody would have to ask, I'm available.
But I actually had just one statement. Thank you, Jessica. Thank you for all of your work on this. So just as a quick kind of 30,000 foot view, reminder, you all have now voted on cut scores. So the department will go back, review its data. The department has until November 1st to release cut scores, though they may do so before that. As soon as cut scores are sent to us by the department, I should say, I'm sorry, we release cut scores. As soon as the department sends us the cut scores and they're released by the board, the appeals window opens. It closes at November 15th at 5 o'clock. And then the appeals committee and board staff has until the December meeting to review those. And then those are approved at the December 4th meeting. So pretty tight timeline. But board staff, Jessica's done an excellent job of cross-training board staff and training our subcommittee members. And so thank you, Member Meyerson, Dr. Hagerman, Dr. Clay. So just a quick reminder of that timeline.
Thank you so much. Any questions from the board for Jessica or Director Ross? Okay, hearing none, then do I have a motion to adopt the 2022-2023 accountability appeals process procedures and timeline as presented? Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Member Catanese. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Clay. Any further discussion or questions? Then I will call the motion.
The votes. Excuse me.
Yep. Who is that? Yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead, Dr. Clegg. Please go ahead.
My comment is that this process has been refined, the communication has been refined, and we continue to refine the communication, which is a very, very is a big concern out in the field, and the process will continue to evolve. I'm very, very happy on the process and how we are moving forward and moving the needle, and I'm sure that we will continue to move the needle. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Clay. Anyone else? Okay. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes, and I'd like to extend our thanks to Jessica and the dozens of others who have worked on this to get us to this point. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll move us on to 5C. Presentation, discussion, and possible action to create a State Board of Education ad hoc Special Education Evaluations Advisory Subcommittee. Director Ross.
Dr. Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. The board has the ability to create an ad hoc subcommittee, advisory committee at any time on any subject. The rules around that in general are that a subcommittee can exist for a year without being reapproved and reappointed, and that the board approves appointment of members to that subcommittee. Just as a refresher, probably the most recent subcommittee of the board was the ad hoc K-3 early literacy committee that was in place for a number of years. I sat in service of that subcommittee. And so the board, several board members have come together and we've worked together to identify a need to look at special education topics, and in particular, starting with special education evaluations, in particular, in light of board rule. It has been many, many years since board rule has been examined in this area, and making sure that board rule is aligned with state law, with federal law, with IDEA, and with the most up-to-date guidance as released by the Office of Special Education Programs, OSEP. OSEP released really robust guidance on general supervision in July. And so there have been some rather recent but significant updates to special education law and special education guidance. And so it seems appropriate to have the board look at its own rule and make sure that it is in alignment with modern and best practices in special education. This first step is simply having the board vote to create the subcommittee. Board staff is working really closely with board members and stakeholders across the field to make sure that the roster for this subcommittee, which will be brought forward in the December meeting, is representative of the landscape of special education, has a plurality of voices, so that the whole environment and ecosystem of special education is represented, and that group is ready to do some great work. And the thing that will differ this subcommittee maybe from some previous subcommittees of the board is, again, that idea of focusing on a specific topic allows for shorter bursts. So instead of going, I think the last time the board had a special education subcommittee, it went on for 5 years. So this will be a shorter burst with more focused action. And ultimately, as is the role of any subcommittee, the subcommittee will build a list of recommendations for the board that the board will then consider in open meeting. And if adopted, then the board staff and the board will work together to enact those recommendations. Just as a reminder, if any subcommittee were to recommend changes to board rule, the recommendations can be adopted by the board, but it would then open rulemaking, and rulemaking would go through its normal process. So public hearings, stakeholder feedback, all of those pieces. So I'm happy to answer any questions about this. I know maybe some board members want to speak to this as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Director Ross. Any thoughts from the board? Yeah, please, Member Clark, and then Member Kervikis.
Kervikis and I both want to share.
Well, first, I want to start off with some thank yous. Thank you to Member Kravickas, Member Clay, and Member Hagerman, or Drs. Hagerman, Dr. Clay, just for all of the work that everyone has done on this process, just early conversation about the importance of everything that you just talked about, Sean, making sure that we are aligned with modern and best practices as it relates to special education evaluations, especially with new documents that have come out from OSEP and lots of other different places. So I also just really want to thank staff for all the work that you've done getting us up to this point. I know it's been a lot and we haven't even voted to open or create the committee yet. As everyone here, I think, knows that students with disabilities have a very, very special place in my heart. And I'm really looking forward to working with every stakeholder across the board that we're going to be putting together in this really fantastic committee so that we can take a look and see what's there, what practices we may need to align. And actually don't normally say this, but I love how it's put on our actual public documents about enhancing consistency, transparency, and equity while preserving the individualized nature of the special education evaluation process. Tip Member Kravickas on that. So I'm really excited about that, really looking forward to this and look forward to being a part of this process.
Thank you very much, Member Kravickas.
Thank you, members, and thank you, Member Clark. I guess I would just want to reassure folks in the field that the intent of this is to have a very narrow focus on evaluation in that one section of rule and not to go out really outside of that. And also it's our expectation, I'll speak, I guess, only for myself, that this is a highly technical conversation of psychologists and attorneys. And if you look at the rules, which is what kind of prompted my support of this, is it hasn't been touched, I'm guessing, in 30 years, maybe at least. So I mean, we literally have like the autism DSM-1 definition still in there. So we're at like DSM-5 or 6 now. And so there's a lot of ways that we can improve upon that. And I thank staff as well and the other members that Jenny just already shouted out for all of our time and commitment and to assure the field that that is our narrow and intent focus. And we want it to be very stakeholder driven. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Kravickas. Anyone else?
Dr. Kaur, this is Dr. Clay.
Yeah, please, Dr. Clay. Floor is yours.
Dr. Kaur, members of the board, I would just like to first ask a question. How long ago were the rules looked at again? What year was that? It was told to me, and I can't remember, but it was a long time ago. Was it in the 70s or something like that? Does anybody remember that when it was last looked at?
I'm going to look to you, Director Ross, with the understanding you may not have that at the tip of your tongue, but
okay. I'm so sorry. That's just such a powerful point. I just wanted to bring that up.
What I will say, and I'm looking over at our policy director, Rico, because I had him research this. Do you remember, Rico, off the top of your head? Yeah. History on our So the board had looked at a very narrow bit of rule back in 2017, but prior to that, this is what Member Kravickas was referring to. I don't believe we even have record of when it was last reviewed. So I think that probably stands, drives home Dr. Clay's point.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, let everyone know it's been a very long time. And just to provide a venue for all of us to communicate, for stakeholders to communicate and relook at everything and move the needle so that we can become better and we can evolve even in this area right here. 100% support, and I'm really excited about. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Clay.
And Dr. Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, I would just add one more detail that I was remiss in not adding in the beginning. We, in understanding that this is a committee of technical experts, as Member Kravickas said, and there's a highly technical process, we would need some support. Deputy Wonders and I have a number of skills, but we are not special education experts. So we are very fortunate. We reached out to West Ed And Rory Fitzpatrick, who is the Senior Managing Director of the National Center for Systemic Improvement, is going to co-facilitate this subcommittee. That's a huge get. Like, that's a open the baseball card pack and go, oh my God, I got Rory Fitzpatrick. Sorry, but that's the best analogy I can give you right now. It's a really big deal that she will be co-facilitating. And so we're very thankful to our friends at Wested for that. And I think that will help, as I've spoken to folks in the field who maybe had a little initial concern because it's special education, and that'll raise some concern. As we share that information, quite often they went, oh, it was very, so just want to make sure that gets out there as well.
Thank you, Director Ross. And I will, as I seek a motion here, just remind folks, this is just to establish the committee, and the roster will be brought back to us at our very next meeting, which is early December. So with that, do I have a motion to approve the creation of the State Board of Education Ad Hoc Special Education Evaluations Advisory Subcommittee? Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Member Clark, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Member Tovar, very nice. Thank you. Any further conversation? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion as presented, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes as presented. Going to move us on to item 6, call to the public. This is the time for comment on items on the consent portion of the enforcement actions. All speakers will once again be limited to 3 minutes. Director Ross, have we received any requests to speak?
Dr. Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, we do not have any requests to speak at this time.
Okay, we have move us on to the consent agenda for enforcement actions. Unless there is an objection from one of my colleagues, my intent is to take this as a single motion. Would any objection to that? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to approve items 7A1 through 7A5?
So moved.
Member Clark, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Vice President Haley, thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor of the approving the motion as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Fantastic. We now reach our last call to the public. This is the time for comment on items on the general session portion of enforcement actions. And once again, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. Director Ross, do we have anyone who wishes to address the board?
Dr. Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up first is Vernon Nicholas, followed by Flynn Carey, and then Lisa Bivens.
Thank you. Vernon, please.
There you go. Thank you, everyone, for allowing a real teacher from the classroom to come up and speak to you. I think it's very important that you see in the flesh the actions, the events that transpired that led me to this day of being here. I teach classes like engineering, video production, business operations, science, health, PE for the last 20 years. I got a master's in science of education, a master's in international administration, and have a packet full of highly effective recommendations from principals for the past 20 years. And at no time during those days of teaching in the classroom or moving up in the ranks of teaching to administration, to athletic director, to vice principal, and any of the schools, had I ever been disciplined or had I ever been accused of falsifying documents. And what was not heard at my PPAC hearing was statements like that. I didn't have an opportunity to bring in support, a room full of students, a room full of administrators to support me. I came straight off a plane from Japan, where I had taken students on an engineering field trip. And my welcome back was to sit through a PPAC hearing, which I was completely blindsided by. I didn't know how the events that happened. I didn't know you need a lawyer. I didn't know I was going to be up on for 3 hours being reviewed or interrogated about my last 15 years of whatever I had done. So I was really caught off guard. I didn't have the support that I needed. And what is really hard for me is that I did, show remorse, apologize for my erroneous application. I breezed through it without paying much attention to detail because the following, reasons and the realization was I was in a position at that time where I was CTE coordinator and I was moving into CTE coordinator role, which very happy to hear today that that's one of the focus points of Arizona. And my passion with the career technical education, I was doing a favor to the current director to teach classes that no one else wanted to teach in the engineering at a high school. And about 3/4 through the year, I was asked to, hey, add an endorsement because we're going to be audited coming up. And I'm like, well, it's not my teaching license that was in discretion here. It was me adding an extra endorsement in an area. Quickly filled out the form. I take full responsibility for being, involved in that process, choosing and not carefully looking at the questions that I had previously answered correctly when I initially got my teaching license in Arizona, the state, back in 2018. Nothing had changed and I had answered quickly and misread it on the next time. What I'm asking is that to revoke a teaching license from somebody who's been in the service so long, I'm asking for a lesser degree of discipline, like a sentence of suspension or censure to make this right. Okay.
Thank you
And
very much.
adding those resources.
Thank you.
Dr. Corr, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next, we have Flynn Carey, followed by Lisa Bivens, and then Shirley Reamer.
Good morning, Flynn.
Good morning, Dr. Corr. Good morning, Superintendent. Good morning, members of the board. Just as a matter of housekeeping, Ms. Bivens was basically a fallback in case my flight did not make it in, but I am here. So on behalf of my firm, I'll tell you, we don't need Ms. Bivens. You are stuck with me. So I'm the attorney for Ms. Reimer, and I'm speaking, this is a case involving a 4-year-old DUI that came before PPAC. A divided PPAC panel voted for a 1-year suspension, which at licensee's age and role will terminate her career as a school psychologist. I'm asking the board today to consider a letter of censure for a variety of reasons here. First of all, she acknowledged her error in getting the DUI. And in fact, she failed to report it on her renewal form several years later after filling out a number of other forms asking about felonies. Hers was a misdemeanor DUI that resolved. First and foremost, there was no established nexus between the DUI and her employment. It didn't happen during the performance of her duties, did not involve students or colleagues, and did not occur during or before work hours. In addition, her employment history is completely devoid of any evidence of alcohol issues. Second, she completed such an in-depth course of remediation that one of your PPAC members remarked that she's done all that could be done to remediate this situation. She went inpatient for 30 days. She went outpatient for the same provider's program. She then took DUI education and also took a MAD impact panel, which is an impact panel that you view people who are victims of DUI. She, to this day, is still working with a therapist. She has been sober for almost over 4 years since this event. She also has made this note, made every one of her employers aware of her situation, and they have embraced her and they've continued to support her. I think there's a significant shortage of psychologists, school psychologists right now. For every psychologist you lose, over 1,000 students are impacted. And I think the board has a number of ways to influence policy. One of the ways you influence policy is through how you address cases like this. There's certainly individuals who have DUIs and they have to face PPAC that way. There are a lot of your folks, a lot of your certificate holders who may have substance issues. And I think the way that you handle someone who has shown this level, 4 years worth of sobriety and commitment, including inpatient and outpatient, does send a signal to people who may be under your radar right now from a substance perspective. Given the totality of what she has done, given the impact that she's had on the community, on the student community, given the fact that this is really a singular error in a period of over 10 years of good performance, and given the fact that she's taken gone above and beyond the call of duty to show that she is serious about this, we'd ask that the board consider a letter of censure, allow her to get back into that classroom, allow her to keep serving the 1,000+ children that each school psychologist contributes in Arizona. Thank you.
Thank you, Flynn.
Dr. Kaur, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Up next is Shirley Reimer, followed by Savannah Wright, and then Morgan Bigelow.
And I do not see Ms. Reimer yet. Would the board be okay to table that until she returns? I think she's in security right now.
Oh, yeah, we have a couple of more speakers for this part, I believe, Executive Director Ross. Yeah, so we can circle back to Ms. Reimer,
Thanks,
assuming
kindly.
she arrives
I'll give the board a wait when I
expeditiously.
see her.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, there she is. Ms. Reimer? Appreciate it.
Sorry.
Ms. Reimer, yeah, get yourself together. I don't believe you were in the room. I've asked each speaker to limit their comments to 3 minutes.
Okay.
So you get yourself set and we'll start the clock.
And then we'll start the clock. Okay. Okay. Dr. Kaur and members of the board, I appreciate the opportunity to address you today. I have worked in mental health for 30 years. And for the last 10, I've been honored to be a school psychologist. I am addressing you today because under the current PPAC recommendation, my ability to assist students in my career as a school psychologist based on your decision will come to an end. I received a DUI 4 years ago in August 2019. I incorrectly then completed my renewal form when I renewed my certificate. Never denied my errors and do not seek to minimize my errors in any way. Driving under the influence is an incredibly dangerous behavior and led to my decision to never drink again, regardless. When I received my DUI, I realized I needed to model the same things I teach the children and families that I encounter in my position. It is why I chose to participate in an extensive rehabilitation program, including both inpatient and outpatient counseling and education, and have remained a relationship with a therapist since then. Actually, she wants to see me at 4 today to know how I'm doing. I remain sober, and in each job I've confided to my employer about my arrest and my circumstances. I'm blessed to have been welcomed into each school and district with open arms and have been humbled by their acceptance of my past error. It is my hope that the board will take another look at my case, and I hope that I can remain in a position to continue to support and to guide the hundreds of families and thousands of individuals that are in my care as a school psychologist. I take this very seriously. I understand that I may see thousands of people, but the people I help will see me and they will remember me. I may not remember all 1,000 of them, but they will remember the influence that I may have had on them. I am blessed to take this opportunity at my age to mentor others and have demonstrated to the board how seriously I take my errors. If the board decides I'm not fit to hold a certificate as a school psychologist, I'll accept that decision. And I will seek other avenues of ways to contribute to society. I believe I still have a lot to give. I'm at an age where I am able to mentor other teachers, school psychologists, administrators. I've been told very often that the way that I have phrased things or interpreted things has brought a new light to them in looking on a case or a difficult case. I also have kind of a propensity or specialty. I don't know. I am drawn to working with the most difficult children, children from
Finish your thought.
Okay. Unfortunately, my biggest struggle in all of this will be managing my feelings of letting people down. That is the worst thing. I have talked to my supervisor, and she was so concerned about me. Said, all I care about is I don't want to let you down. And I know that you won't be able to fill my position. So through those relationships, that is what I will feel most seriously guilty about. Thank you for this time. I appreciate everything you do to support Arizona students, teachers, and parents.
Thank you, Ms. Reimer. Thank you.
Superintendent Horn, Dr. Core, members of the board. Up next, we have Savannah Wright, followed by Morgan Bigelow.
Good morning, and thank you, Savannah Wright, on behalf of the State Board of Education versus Mr. Nicholas. The PPAC found that Mr. Nicholas provided false and inaccurate information when applying for a career and technical education certification, including marking no to the inquiry of prior arrests and falsifying employment hours. The PPAC heard from Mr. Nicholas that he knew of his 2 prior arrests when filling out his application. Furthermore, Mr. Nicholas falsified his verification of employment form, listing 6,700 hours of work, when in reality, he only worked 1,136 hours as confirmed by his company. The PPAC heard Mr. Nicholas testify that if he would have known that his company would send a truthful VOE form listing the actual hours worked, then he would have not submitted another form listing 670 hours, trying to cover up his actions for falsifying his hours originally. Mr. Nicholas claims he was not notified of the PPAC hearing in a timely manner and therefore could not present any evidence. Mr. Nicholas's PPAC hearing was scheduled for June 14th. He received a mailed copy of the notice of PPAC hearing on May 18th and an emailed version on May 31st. Including the notice that he has at least 6 days prior to the PPAC hearing to submit evidence. Mr. Nicholas testified at the PPAC hearing that he had received the PPAC notice of hearing packet and opened it on May 22nd. The deadline for Mr. Nicholas to submit exhibits and disclose any witnesses was June 8th. As such, he had a total of 17 calendar days to submit exhibits. Mr. Nicholas was also properly noticed of the August board hearing. Board staff mailed Mr. Nicholas a notice of board meeting on July 12th. Mr. Nicholas chose to represent himself, waived his right to an attorney, and chose not to present exhibits, even though he had proper advance notice. Mr. Nicholas also presented testimony and arguments at the hearing. The PPAC heard respondent continuously blame others for his false application materials and refused to take responsibilities for his actions. Mr. Nicholas alleges that he is a teacher of over 20 years with impeccable record, evaluations, and multiple master's degrees in teaching in a state with a teacher shortage, as factors requiring discipline less than revocation. However, the PPAC is not permitted to consider any teacher shortage in deliberations for discipline, nor can the number of degrees dictate whether they are found to have committed unprofessional conduct or whether and how they are disciplined for doing so. Finally, Mr. Nicholas alleges that new evidence has come to light, including teacher evaluations from 2018 to 2023, his resume, and degrees. None of these qualify as new evidence, as the evaluations were all completed or documents were in his possession prior to the PPAC hearing. In fact, it's as if Mr. Nicholas is suggesting that he is somehow above disciplinary action simply because he has an extensive history and multiple degrees. Therefore, the state requests that the board deny Mr. Nicholas's motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wright.
Dr. Core, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. Our last speaker is Morgan Bigelow.
Executive Director Ross, President Core. Morgan Bigelow has not joined the meeting today.
Dr. Core, that concludes this call to the public.
Thank you so much. Then I will move us on to item 9. I would like to take these items in a single motion, but as always, board members may call for the removal of any item to be discussed and voted on separately if they so choose. Would anyone like anything removed from agenda item 9A?
I'd like to hear the response to the psychologist. We got a response for the first speaker, but we didn't get a response on the psychologist.
Dr. Core, Superintendent Horn, that item is going to be, that educator will show up in 9B.
Yeah. Okay, we're good on 9A then. With that, Do I have a motion to approve items 9A1 through 9A4? Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Vice President Haley, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Member Clark, thank you. Any further conversation? Okay, with that, all those in favor of approving the motion as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries as presented. So let me go through my thing here, Superintendent Horn. So I'm moving us on to 9B. Again, I would like to take these items in a single motion, but as always, board members may call for the removal of an item to be discussed and voted upon separately if you so choose. And I believe you would like 9B2, Ms. Reimer's case to be pulled. Is that correct?
I'd just like to hear the response first. It may not need to be pulled, but I'd like to hear the response.
Okay. Executive Director Ross, are we prepared to have someone speak to that?
Dr. Core, Superintendent Horn, members of the board, we do not have someone to speak in response to that. Just as a reminder, our Director of Enforcement Actions is not with us today. And so, no, there's no one to speak to that item today.
Okay.
Yeah, I would request it be removed then.
Okay. I'm at the request of Superintendent Horn, I'm going to remove item 9B2. Any other item to be removed? Okay, hearing none, then do I have a motion to approve items 9B1 and 9B3, 4, and 5? Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Member Clark, thank you. Do I have a second? Member Kravitz, thank you. Any conversation about 9B1, 9B3, 4, and 5? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the motion as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So now I will circle us back to 9B2, the case of Shirley Reimer. Superintendent Horn, please.
Yeah, I'd like to ask you if we could postpone until the next meeting so we could hear the other side of the story.
Superintendent Horn, Dr. Core, members of the board certainly has an option to table item B2 until the next meeting. Historically, if there has been a question about a case that has gone to the PPAC, the board also has the ability to send that case back to the PPAC if it so chooses. So there are sort of a number of options available to the board. So I want to just make you aware that there are sort of more choices here.
Thank you. Yeah, Member Clark.
Director Ross, could you remind us what the recommendations of the PPAC were? I know that legal counsel said that there was a split vote, but could you remind us what the recommendations were? Deputy Director Wonder.
Yeah, President Core, Superintendent Horn, members of the board. The recommendation from the PPAC for Educator Reimer was a 6-2 vote to suspend the teaching certificate for 12 months.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts or questions? Member,
I'm sorry.
Yep, please, Superintendent Horn. I thought I saw Member Kravitz making a move. Go ahead. You got it.
So would it be appropriate then to do a motion to table so that we could hear the other side of the story?
So if the board so chooses, it could vote to postpone the review of this item until the December meeting.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
Okay, and I'm going to circle right back to you, Superintendent Horn. I want to make sure. No. Okay. So we have a motion. We have a motion by Superintendent Horn to table this particular case until our December meeting, with the understanding that Superintendent Horn would like to hear the other side, if you will. But that will need a second. Do I have a second to that motion? Member Kravitz, any other conversation or thoughts? Okay, hearing none. And again, let me restate the motion just to make sure we all understand what we're about to vote on. This would delay a vote on 9 B2, the case of Shirley Reimer, case number C 2022-000624 until our December meeting. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor of the motion as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign.
Nay.
Should we roll call that? Yeah. Would you mind?
Yeah. So we're going to do a roll call vote, members of
Yeah.
the board, Superintendent Horn. Yes.
Anything else? I agree with this. Is there any other? Just.
Superintendent Horn, Dr. Core, Member Meyerson, the delay is in the delay in the decision.
Just in the decision.
Well, then, and I'm not aware yet, or at the moment, if Educator Reimer is currently working in that capacity, this might delay her ability to work in that capacity or not. But there's no delay, and the board can certainly table this to decide in December.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Ross, do you want me to call the roll, or are you going to call the roll on this?
Dr. Core, I can call the roll.
Okay.
Will you restate the motion though?
Absolutely. So the motion for consideration is to delay to our December meeting an official board action on item 9B2, the case of Shirley Reimer, case number C 2022-000624.
Dr. Core?
Yes.
Vice President Haley?
No.
Superintendent Horn?
Yes.
Member Catanese?
Yes.
Member Clark?
No.
Dr. Clay?
Yes.
Dr. Hagerman?
Yes.
Member Kravickas?
Yes.
Member Meyerson?
Yes.
And Member Tovar?
Aye.
Dr. Core, the ayes have it.
Okay, thank you very much. With that, I will move us on to item 9C. This is presentation, discussion, and possible action to grant or deny the request for a hearing of Evelyn Andrade, case number C 2022-002379. Do I have a motion to deny educator Evelyn Andrade's request for a hearing? Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Member Clark. Do I have a second?
Second.
Dr. Hagerman, thank you. Any conversation or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the motion as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries as presented. Move us on to 9D, presentation, discussion, and possible action to grant or deny the request for rehearing of Vernon Nicholas case number C-2022-000828. Do I have a motion to deny educator Vernon Robertson Nicholas's request for rehearing and that all states and territories be so notified? Do I have such a motion?
So moved.
Member Clark, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Superintendent Horn, any thoughts, comments, or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of approving the motion as presented, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Move us on to our final agenda item, summary of current events, future meeting dates, and we have a lot to be thankful for in November. And one such reason is we do not meet in November. Our next meeting will be December 4th. Any discussion or announcements, Director Ross?
I just want to thank board staff and the A3F Appeals Subcommittee members, Member Meyerson, Dr. Hagerman, Dr. Clay. It is going to be a very busy November for us and very much just very thankful for board members and their time. Also, I want to remind Dr. Core that this kicks in for Aaron and I, our under 90-minute meeting clause in our contracts.
Well,
No, that's it, Dr. Court. Thank you.
I think I should at least get a share of that bonus if there's such a thing. Yeah, I attribute it to our new member Tovar for inspiring us to move through in 90 minutes. Don't get used to it. It doesn't happen often. But with that, I will and any announcements from any of my colleagues? Go ahead, Member Clay.
Dr. Core, members of the board, I would just like a shout out to our SRO of the year, Robert Zavella of Naco Elementary School District in Cochise County. I just want to go ahead and give a shout out to him for the state recognition. And we're very, very proud of him. Thank you.
Fantastic. That's great. Anyone else? Then I will adjourn this meeting at 10:32 and thank you all very much. Be well.